You live in this world and you make choices. Choices you swear are right until they are not. For survival, for love, for reasons that made sense at the time. And for a while it works. You keep moving forward, telling yourself it's under control. It tears through your family, your friends, and worst of all, the person you thought you were. And when it is over, when there is nothing left, you finally understand. You are alone, with nothing but ghosts. This is Havoc. It started with a high-speed chase. 2 police cars closing in on a stolen truck. Sirens howling, lights flashing, officers shouting through the loudspeaker, "Pull over!" But the truck didn't stop. 4 people inside, 2 up front, gripping the wheel like their lives depended on it. 2 in the back, silent and waiting. The truck was loaded with washing machines, but this was no ordinary heist. The driver swerved through traffic, weaving between cars with reckless precision. The police stayed on them, not giving an inch. Officers fired at the tires, trying to shut it down before someone got killed. Then in a flash, it happened. The back doors flew open. 2 people leaned out, grabbed a washing machine and threw it onto the road. It spun through the air and slammed into the police car. Metal crunched. Glass exploded. One officer crawled out, dazed but alive. The other was pinned inside, crushed, bleeding out, his partner's screams echoing over the sirens. And just like that, the truck was gone. Gone into the night, leaving behind 2 wrecked cop cars and a critically wounded officer. Inside that truck were Mia and Charlie. They thought they had it all figured out, thought they were playing it smart, doing what they had to do to survive. But when you owe people like this, the debt always runs deeper than you think. That night was just the beginning. The message was clear, and soon the streets would drown in blood. Now under the cover of darkness, Mia and Charlie pushed through the cracked doorway, duffel bags in hand. This wasn't revenge, it was pure desperation. Settle Mia's debt, get out alive, vanish. The Cantonese man stood waiting, eyes sharp, a slow smirk curling his lips. "Didn't expect you to deliver," he said, his gaze flicking to the bag. Outside, a van sat quietly in the dark. Inside, 3 masked men loaded rifles, each movement calm and practiced. Mr. Ching, standing at the door, felt his phone buzz. He glanced down at the screen and read one cold message: "Walk away now." Without a word, he stepped back and walked away. Mia's phone rang. She answered, her friend's voice breathless and panicked. "Get out, now!" But before she could move, it was too late. A shot cracked through the air. One of the guards dropped. Then everything exploded. Screams, gunfire, blood. The shooting stopped, but the damage was done. Walker and Ellie arrived at Elmore and 5th. Bodies on the floor, shell casings everywhere, sirens wailing. Ellie showed him footage of some suspects. As Walker scanned the screen, his eyes froze on Charlie's face. His stomach dropped, but he quickly covered it, brushing it off with a calm, "I don't know everyone in this city." Without another word, he turned and walked out, already set on one thing: going to see his father, Lawrence. He headed straight to Lawrence Beaumont's office, wasting no time. "Where's Charlie?" he demanded. Lawrence stiffened, his eyes dark. "We haven't spoken since his mother died." Walker's voice dropped lower. "I just came from a crime scene. 9 dead. Coke deal blown apart." He pulled out his phone and showed Lawrence the footage. Lawrence leaned in, eyes narrowing, and his face drained of color. It was Charlie, his own son. He shook his head, his voice rough. "My son's not a killer." Walker let that hang in the air before speaking again. "If I bring him back, we're done. No more games, no more deals. Just you and your son, gone for good." But while Walker chased one threat, another was already closing in. Clarice Fong had lost her son, and she wasn't looking for justice. She wanted revenge. She stood over his body, her hands trembling, her eyes cold as stone. One tear rolled down her cheek, but her face burned with fury. By sunrise, the streets would bleed. Clarice moved fast. Her people tracked down Lawrence and snatched him off the street, dragging him to a hidden location. She didn't need him to talk. He was there as bait. And thanks to a tip from one of Mia's friends, Clarice found Mia's hiding place too. The trap was set, and Clarice was ready to finish it. Meanwhile, Walker cornered Mia's uncle and forced the truth out of him. Mia and Charlie were on the verge of disappearing, with their new passports nearly ready for the escape. Walker moved fast, texting Mia from her uncle's phone, luring her in. Mia showed up, eyes sharp but guarded, her body tense. Walker didn't waste a second. "Where's Charlie?" he demanded. Mia stared at him. "I'm not telling you anything." She turned to leave, her steps quickening until she froze. 3 men stepped into the room: Vincent, Hayes, and Jake. The moment Mia recognized them, fear shot through her, her eyes wide and her breath catching in her throat. Her voice shook, but she managed to say, "That's him, the guy who killed Tsui." At that moment, the nightmare began. The words hung in the air, sharp and heavy. Walker's eyes locked onto the men. Vincent, Hayes, Jake. He knew them well, his old crew. Once cops, now killers. Before anyone could react, shouts burst through the room. Ms. Fong's people stormed in, eyes locked on Mia, weapons raised and ready. All hell broke loose. Gunfire ripped through the air, glass shattered, bodies hit the floor. Mia dropped, covering her head, while Walker fired back, struggling to keep them both alive. Blood splattered across the walls, the room filled with screams. Charlie rushed in, grabbed Mia by the arm, and yanked her up. Together with Walker, they sprinted through the chaos, dodging bullets, stepping over lifeless bodies, the floor covered in blood. They dove into the car, and Walker slammed his foot down hard on the accelerator. Bullets smashed into the doors, glass exploded, and the car shook under the weight of gunfire. Tires screeched as they weaved through the streets, bullets still flying behind them. Walker didn't slow down, gripping the wheel tight as they took sharp turns, trying to lose their attackers. Finally, the shots faded into the distance. Breathing hard, Walker pulled out his phone and called Ellie, his voice sharp and tense. He said, "Ellie, listen. Vincent, Jake, and Hayes were all involved. This was about the coke in the truck." Ellie's response came fast and tight. "Hayes is dead." Walker's jaw clenched. His voice was steel. "Get to the hospital. Check on Cortez now." Earlier that night, Ching had been caught on a quiet call with Vincent. His tone was cold and serious. That was when the truth finally came out. Ching, Vincent, Hayes, and Jake had been part of the coke deal from the very beginning, all of them working in the shadows. Later, Ellie rushed into the hospital, heading straight to the front desk. "Which room is Cortez in?" she asked quickly. As the nurse searched the system, Ellie's eyes drifted to a nearby security monitor. Her breath caught in her throat. There was Mr. Ching standing right outside Cortez's room, gun in hand, pacing like he was waiting for his moment. Ellie's heart slammed in her chest. She pointed at the screen. "Call security now." But before anyone could move, Ching slipped into the room. Ellie watched in horror as he raised his gun and shot Cortez, then turned and fired at Cortez's wife. The screen froze. The room went still. Ellie didn't hesitate. She ran full speed down the hallway, pushing past the chaos. Up ahead, she spotted Ching sprinting, trying to escape. Ellie fired, hitting him in the foot. Ching stumbled and crashed hard to the ground. Without missing a beat, Ellie pinned him down, cuffed him tight, and dragged him out of the hospital, forcing him to lead her straight to Vincent's hideout. Meanwhile, Walker's plan to take Charlie back to his father had fallen apart. Everything was spinning out of control. As they tried to escape, Ms. Fong's people found Walker's cabin. Fully armed, they surrounded the place, blocking every exit. They had been waiting for this moment. Gunfire erupted, bullets ripping through the night, bodies crumpled to the ground, blood spreading across the dirt. People screamed and scattered, but Ms. Fong's crew kept closing in. Mia and Charlie were trapped, backed into a corner with nowhere left to run. Ms. Fong's people closed in and dragged them out, forcing them to their knees. Guns pressed tight against their heads, cold and merciless. Ms. Fong stepped forward, her eyes burning with cold fury. She loaded her gun slowly, every movement sharp and deliberate. Her eyes locked onto Lawrence. "Your son took the one thing I love most in this world," she said, her voice low and biting, speaking of her own son. "Now it's your turn." She handed him the gun, her eyes hard. "Kill her." Mia's eyes filled with tears, her voice cracking as she begged, "Please don't do this." Charlie struggled against the grip on him, his voice desperate. "I can't lose any more, please." Lawrence stood frozen in place, his hands shaking, his eyes locked on Mia. The weight of the gun felt unbearable as he tried to decide. Suddenly, a heavy bag hit the floor with a deep thud, cutting through the tension like a blade. Every head snapped toward the sound. Ellie stepped forward out of the shadows, her gun raised, her voice sharp and commanding. "Put your weapons down. You're after the wrong people." Everyone fell into a heavy silence. Then from the far side, Mr. Ching and Vincent stepped out together, their faces blank and cold. Ms. Fong's eyes flared with fury. "You betrayed my son," she hissed. Ching's voice came out hard and bitter. "Number you betrayed me first. When my big brother died, I should have taken over, but you gave it to your son. I told you he wasn't ready, but you didn't listen." Without warning, chaos broke loose again. Vincent and Jake lunged forward, grabbing Ellie's gun. A shot rang out. A man dropped where he stood. Jake hit Ellie with the gun, knocking her down. She fell to the floor, motionless. Jake turned the gun on Mia and Charlie, his finger on the trigger. There was no time to think, no way out. The shot fired, but Lawrence stepped in front of them, taking the bullet full force. He collapsed, gasping, blood soaking through his shirt. Walker's eyes locked onto the scene, breath tight in his chest. He grabbed a rifle and opened fire. Ellie, dazed but alive, dragged herself up and started shooting too. Gunfire exploded around them, the room shaking as bodies dropped. Ms. Fong grabbed her gun, but Ching shot her first. Ching then turned to Vincent, raising his gun, but Vincent spun and shot him in the chest. Ching staggered back, choking, blood pouring from his wound. Lawrence was still on the floor, bleeding out. He locked eyes with Charlie. His voice was rough and weak. "Take care of her." His eyes closed and he was gone. Outside, Ellie tried to escape, but Jake was waiting. He shot at her car, smashing it with bullets. Ellie rolled out and grabbed her rifle, but it jammed. Jake stepped closer, gun raised. Before he could shoot, came up behind him and fired. Jake fell hard. He was dead. Vincent was already running, dragging the bag and stumbling toward the train tracks. Walker chased after him, breathing hard, rifle raised. Vincent reached the train and grabbed for the rail, struggling to pull himself up. Walker shouted, "Stop!" But Vincent kept climbing. Walker fired. Vincent fell hard, landing on the gravel, still clawing at the bag. He looked up, face twisted with rage. "Why didn't you let me go? What does it matter to you?" he rasped. Walker stepped closer, eyes locked on him. "You don't get to walk away from this," he said coldly. For a second, everything went still. Then Vincent suddenly raised his gun and fired. Walker stumbled, then fired back again and again until Vincent stopped moving. The silence closed in. Charlie and Mia sat in the car, shaken, blood on their clothes, faces pale. Ellie leaned down to the window and spoke quietly, her tone serious but calm. "It's better if you turn yourselves in. People are out there looking for you." Charlie kept his eyes on the road ahead, his hands gripping the wheel. His voice was tired but firm. "We'll take our chances." Mia started the engine, and without another word, they pulled away, disappearing down the dark street. Walker sat on the ground nearby, slumped against the train, his face covered in blood, eyes hollow and distant. He didn't speak. He didn't move. Sirens wailed louder in the distance, red and blue lights beginning to flash across his face. She spoke softly, almost as if to herself. "I can take your daughter her Christmas present." Walker didn't look up. His voice came out low and raw. "Number, I don't want to ruin her Christmas." The sirens grew louder, the flashing lights washing over them. Walker stayed where he was, still and broken, staring into nothing. And then everything went black. No one knew what would happen next.